Day 52, Psalm 139, verses 1 through 4. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all of my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. I'll stop there. Those are some powerful words from David. What really strikes me, a couple of those verses, is it really hits me when it says, you are familiar with all of my ways. And then in verse 1, you've searched me, Lord, and you know me. When I think about my life and the patterns, good and bad, that I've been in the past, it's whatever it is I'm doing, good or bad, it's easy to kind of build up a tolerance around what you are doing, to the point where you kind of go on autopilot with said thing, if that makes sense. And I think it's really important that we come back to our senses in life with our patterns, because we can often get very off track in a negative way, just starting to live in rhythms and patterns of this world. And it's almost like when someone is a little kid and they're growing up, it's like you don't notice them getting taller, on a day-by-day basis, but you wake up a year later and it's like, wow, you've really grown, when you compare a picture maybe of them from a year ago. And I think that's how our behaviors can be, is I don't think any specific day we wake up and consciously choose to be in some destructive pattern. And again, I'm not trying to fire and brimstone this and be thee must stop all sinful patterns, but truly though, in a perfect world, we need to assess consciously and intentionally our hearts and our behaviors and our patterns. Because in these verses, it's you know when I sit and when I rise, you perceive my thoughts from afar. It's before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You're familiar with all my ways. This is real stuff. And God, he knows our hearts. There's no fooling him. And I think a lot of times, because we've become so just tolerant, and I don't mean, I mean tolerance in a way of it's an alcohol tolerance, where it takes more and more to even feel it. It's maybe with our destructive patterns, we don't even feel it on a day-to-day basis because we're just used to living that way. And then we can justify it, or we can kind of selectively put it out of our minds to where we're going to sleep at night just fine, and we don't really think about our heart and the trajectory and the condition of our heart. And I think that we really need to just be honest in our assessment with ourselves. Am I living for God? If you claim to be a Christian, and if not, let's talk about just accepting that free gift. If you're not a Christian, you don't have to get clean before you jump in the shower. So that gift is yours to accept, and then to know God is to want to know him more. But if you claim to be a Christian and you've been reading this stuff, but you're in these rhythms of life that are just not optimal, in fact, they're destructive, then you probably need to have that honest conversation with yourself, that honest assessment. You've got to regain your senses around, is what you're doing the best thing for God's will in your life, or is it not? And if it's not, you've got to have the perseverance and the courage to change today, start today, day one, not one day down the road. It's a tough topic, man, because we are very slow to want to look ourselves in the mirror and be yeah, 8-year-old wouldn't be proud with me right now, wouldn't be proud of me, wouldn't be happy with what I'm doing. I think a lot of us would be shocked to really have that assessment, and but would probably come to the conclusion that, yeah, you're not living in a way that younger you would be proud, and you're not living in a way that's seeking God with your heart, soul, and mind. And I bet a lot of us would probably say, hey, I'm not even doing anything right now to correct it. I've identified that younger me wouldn't be happy with where I'm going, and man, I'm not even taking any steps to correct it. So start today. Start taking those steps. Start regaining your senses about your patterns and rhythms in life. And I've got a similar quote today, kind of back on the integrity topic, which I've talked about integrity in a previous video. but I thought this one was interesting. Real simple. It says, integrity is telling myself the truth, and honesty is telling the truth to other people. So let's just focus on the first part of that quote. So integrity, it's just telling yourself the truth, man. It's like, where are you at in life? And maybe you're killing it. Maybe you're doing great and you're more connected with God than you ever have been, and you're more patient with people than you ever have been. Well, then you can celebrate that, but keep going. Again, that's the whole theme of these videos, is keep going. And it doesn't mean you're not going to fall and have days where you fail, but it's just that constant pursuit. Like, that's what wakes me up in the morning, is just the opportunity to be better every single day. I spent too much of my life and too many seasons talking about it without the action to follow, or following the action for a couple months and then becoming defeated and, eventually stopping altogether. And it takes a lot of courage to start back from square one. But again, those verses, it's like, God searched us. He knows us. He knows what we're doing. He knows the direction and condition of our heart. He's familiar with our ways. And I just want to live in a way that's like, God, like I'm not perfect. I fail, but I want to live in a way that's like, God, I've dropped my vices. You know my heart. You know who I am. You know that I'm flawed. You know I've got anxiety. You know I've got some OCD. Like, you know that I'm a flawed human. But you also know that I'm chasing you with all my heart, soul, and mind. And God, you know that I'm on this earth physically doing the best I can for myself, and mentally doing the best I can for the people around me. And I'm showing up. Like, that's what I strive for. Again, not perfect, but it's just that pursuit. So be intentional today, be intentional this week to have the integrity to tell yourself the truth. Like Bryson, if I were to talk to myself 2 years ago, Bryson, you are not living in a way that's intentional. You are not being perseverant. You are not being tenacious. You're not living in a way that would have made 8-year-old Bryson proud. Not that it was like nefarious or malicious, but just like not focusing on doing my best to show up for God, for myself, and for those around me. And then when you can have the integrity to be honest with yourself, then it's the foundation for growth. And that's where I feel like I'm at today. So much room for improvement, but the pursuit of that's what's waking me up every morning. Day 52.